Good morning, PlayStation Universe, and welcome to episode 47 of PlayStation Fix. My name is Will Robinson, and joining me this morning, as always, is Senior Editor Kyle Prawl.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good, good. I think we got
Sweet.
we
Good
got
to
a
hear.
good amount at our disposal to talk about this morning.
Yeah, no kidding. I was just gonna say it's been a morning. First of all, like you know a little behind the scenes action. I had to run out of the house to get coffee when it got to be 8:50, and I'm like, oh, there is none. So here I am with my McCafe, McDonald's coming through in a pinch,
No, there.
and
Please
just
give us money if you feel like you want to with that ad
oh, wouldn't that
placement.
be sick? Nice little sponsorship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding.
No, and it's been a week, man, coming back from PSX and then finding
hmm
time in the evenings to play the Final Fantasy 15 that I didn't get to play during PSX.
hmm
Not that I didn't try, mind you. I brought a DualShock, a wireless adapter, and my laptop to attempt to do remote play from the hotel,
How'd
and
that
it
go?
was not happening.
Pretty much. But yeah, you guys got a lot of news dropped on you because you and Ernest were
Yes,
at the PSX show. I was actually at a For Honor event in the same weekend.
that's right. Yep.
We'll get details on what I saw from that later this week. But yeah, you guys pumped out a lot of stuff from what you saw that week, and I have a feeling some of those news stories are going to come up today.
How did you know? Yeah, perhaps. No, it was a great time. We pumped out a lot of stuff. The showcase was great. Ernest went to all the panels. He live tweeted
hmm
Hideo Kojima's panel, the
Didn't he
Last of Us panel.
Periscope too?
Probably
I
he
feel
maybe
like he
did that,
probably
or
did.
yeah, he Vined it. He Facebook Lived it,
Yeah.
or no, he didn't Vine it. Vine is going the way of the dodo, isn't it?
Oh, that's right.
Anyway, yeah. So no, it was great, but it's made for a very interesting time here the last week or two.
hmm So I would say, well, I'll just take control and start off the first topic since it kind of makes sense of where we're going. I have a feeling that you might have been wanting to talk about this too. Uh, I'd say it's safe to say that the biggest announcement at PSX was the
Crash
confirmed.
Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy. Yes, I was gonna say
Oh,
the
sure,
same
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
no.
From the same creative studio though, is that The Last of Us Part Two, or the original Crash games anyway, but Last of Us Part Two has
Yeah.
been formally released with a chilling trailer,
Yes, no doubt. Very.
and we got some more details off of that afterwards. But we know that Last of Us Part 2 is going to be focused on well, I don't know if it's sole playable because they had surprises in the first game, but the main character of this one is going to be Ellie, focused on
Mhm.
her and her story, and it's going to be about hate and stuff like that. Or is it hate and revenge or something? I can't remember the word. It was,
Really, yeah. I think distilled to one word, it would be hate.
yeah.
And in that sense, the first game was love. The second
hmm
game is hate.
Yeah, so that was, first of all, that trailer was absolutely gorgeous. Just the
It
animation,
felt like
oh,
watching. I mean, it briefly felt like watching a PlayStation 5 trailer. You know, like it
yeah.
had that sense where it's like this is so far, especially since the show began with the Uncharted story expansion, and you see the Uncharted engine, and then to bookend it
hmm
with what is clearly a far upgraded version of that. I
Yep.
mean, like you can't even as astonishing as that is, character-wise, The Last of Us 2 is blowing Uncharted 4 out of the water.
Yeah.
Um,
That's,
we'll see how it looks in motion, but just at least Ellie's face and like you said, her animations,
hmm
her that detail is just absurd.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is going to be one of the things you talked about since you mentioned Uncharted. That trailer was just awesome because
Oh
it
my
felt like it
God,
was a completely different game. Like
it
it
did,
felt
it
like it
did.
was something like, what is this coming out? I was
I
like,
know,
who's
I
making
know.
this game? It's like,
Well, the energy too in the room
yeah.
was like when if you imagine when it begins and the camera pans down and you see like that metal, looks like a shanty town almost at first.
hmm
Everyone around me was whispering Last of Us 2. Like we
Mm.
just like that's what we jumped to because it was this dilapidated sort of post-apocalyptic
No, it's
feeling.
just the Middle East.
And then yeah, a
Yeah.
woman walks on screen with the full body shawl, and you're like, oh, this is different.
Yeah.
Okay. And then like it had that vibe where like the engine feels like the Uncharted engine with the way it's kind of over her shoulder and tracking
hmm
behind her, but still like nobody. The first murmurings of people figuring out wasn't until Nadine popped up on screen, and people
hmm
recognized, like the hardcore fans recognized her voice and her face a bit, and then they were like, "Oh, oh, oh!" The room just erupted when Chloe took down her
hmm
coverings.
Yeah, that was really. I was actually expecting it was Elena the whole time. That's just what I
Sure.
assumed when
You almost forget
like I saw it. I
about
didn't see it during the show. I saw it after I saw the trailer when I knew it was the DLC thing.
it.
So like, but it looked like a totally different game, which I thought was really cool, just the vibe of it. But yeah, I just assumed it was Elena the whole time, and she's like, oh, she's gonna meet Drake somewhere, and then it's like, oh, Chloe's back. I was like, oh yeah, it's just like,
Exactly.
and then having the two of them team up together though, that's gonna be really interesting to hear that backstory connection between the two. So
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
really
it's
excited.
gonna flush out. Like Nadine was probably, if you had to pick one part of the Uncharted 4 story that was a little underdeveloped, I think Nadine's probably the prime candidate.
Yeah,
Although,
she had a lot there, you could tell.
yeah, so that'll be great, and then also it's a chance to bring back Chloe, who really wasn't even in the game. So just
Hmm.
great all around, an awesome angle. Yeah, The Last of Us. Well, so the name Last of Us Part Two, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Like that to me, it's such a smart way to sidestep the how quirky and weird that any other name could be, like The Last of Us 2 or The Last of Us with some extra subtitle, and it's
yeah,
super long.
not like Final Fantasy 15.
No.
There's
um,
there's been 15 Final
right.
Fantasies. Yeah, that's like no, but yeah,
This is more
instead
like
of
a Godfather thing,
yeah,
where,
it's still like yeah, it's still The Last of Us. It's just the rest of the story basically.
and I think it gave me some, I was one of the people, I think you were too, where the biggest trepidation was, I don't know that this game needs a sequel because you run into
Yeah.
dangers of it was such an excellent standalone story that why are we going back there when we don't need to? And
Hmm.
they as they always do, Naughty Dog gave me some confidence when Druckmann said both in the panel and they wrote a post on the PlayStation blog shortly after saying like we took 3 years just story built like just coming up with ideas because like
Yeah.
they for the longest time didn't know that they were going to make it and they threw away so many ideas that they were eventually just on the cusp of giving up, and it was only when this current story idea, whatever that is,
Hmm.
came along that they're like, okay, now we're comfortable moving forward.
This
So
is why
that
that's why I just absolutely love Naughty Dog as a studio. Just because it's like they have basically free reign to do whatever they want because they're proven how good they are. So it's like they can just spend 3 years thinking of a story. Like you clearly Sony's like, yeah, you guys come up with Last of Us 2 yet? You got
like
got a
no,
game?
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
And you're like, no, we're not. Oh, okay. Well, let us know if you're thinking.
let
It's just like,
us know. We'll put you on stage.
yeah, pretty much it is just like, but it's not like yeah, they weren't being forced to come out with a game on it. It was mainly like they. It's the same with like why they haven't done a Jack and Daxter game like on PS4 or anything like that. Where it's just like they couldn't think of something that they felt comfortable about or thought would be good, so they didn't
Yeah,
do it.
and in that case, the project, they just abandon it. They're just like, well, that
Yeah.
can't happen. But with The Last of Us, they were able to find something, and that's
Hmm.
really exciting. Ernest spilled a few more tidbits from the panel. I'm just looking back at his live tweets from the day.
Hmm.
Uh, Somewhat obviously, Ellie is the most advanced character model ever created within Sony. They've never rendered a human with that much detail or animation, so she is the current flag bearer for internal detail at Sony Studios.
Wow,
That's
that's
pretty cool.
that is pretty awesome.
Kind of makes sense when you think about it, because it's like, well, I suppose, what would be more detailed than her, among
Hmm.
previous games? Certainly not our friend Knack.
That would be kind of depressing if that was the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, so well, the detail with Ellie, at least one of the things that we know about is that there was a picture of this big tattoo on her right forearm
Hmm.
that was released now. It's two different types of ferns and then a moth that's rested on it. And I was actually trying to find the specifics of what those were, looking at like comparing different things and like I mean, there are two different types of ferns that it could be, or the two different ferns like what they could end up being, but it's like at least in North America, but
Yeah.
there's nothing really striking in terms of like meaning behind it. It's just more that like ferns and moths are both I mean ferns as a plant species just do well in basically dark shaded areas and damp conditions and damp
Hmm.
soil and stuff, and moths are obviously nocturnal primarily and deal with that stuff, and it just I mean it's more obvious kind of correlations from what I could find, meaning that it's just like Ellie's a character in a dark place. A lot of it takes place in
Sure. Sort of
nighttime or different
symbolic.
things like that. Yeah, it's just I think it's very fairly obvious what the meaning of that would be I'm assuming there is some deeper meaning behind it that will get revealed. It almost certainly has to be talked about in the game at some point.
Mhm.
Cause,
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I think it will be. We might even see her get it, or maybe
mhm.
in like a flashback, which is interesting. So I'm like, who is, who's got the time to be crafting tattoos in this
Mhm.
post-apocalyptic world? Like who's just,
Yeah.
the clickers have come, the infection has spread, and I've managed to restart my tattoo parlor.
Mhm. Yeah. Pretty much.
That's just somebody's story.
Yeah. Well,
These,
I mean, actually, the moth could just be well, let's start with this: that there's with the confirmation that Ellie's going to be the main character, the protagonist of this game, and playing as her, if not the entire time, most of the time of the game. There are basically the biggest common theory out there right now is that you see Joel at the end of the trailer like walk in and talk to her briefly, but you never see his face or anything like that.
right.
And the biggest theory right now is that basically that she's just like imagining him like he died a while ago, and that's why she hate and like the group that she wants revenge for is to kill every last one of them, as she says, is the Fireflies because
For
they've gone
killing.
after for killing Joel and going
So
after
like
him.
so
So
in the meantime, maybe like the big reveal, like in the middle of the game, will be that he was never actually there. She's just been imagining him.
yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened right away at the beginning of the game, and he's just this voice like there was another game that just did this, and I can't remember what it was. But it also could be extremely spoilery if I do remember what it is.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But anyway, I know it's a
Yeah,
tool.
that is an
Obviously, it's
interesting
a tool
theory,
that's
though.
used in different things where it's these people. But anyway, but the tattoo itself, I mean, that could make kind of sense or some sense in a way if the Fireflies are the main group that she's going after. The Moth could be just basically the other side of the coin to that, where it is nighttime, but there's like no light for it type of thing. Or
Sure.
but then there's the two different ferns. One could be representative of her, and one could be representative of Joel. At the same way, there are male and female named ferns as well, actually.
Varieties. Yeah.
So, well, there's a lady fern, which actually that one kind of looks like it, which doesn't denote the sex of the plant, but it's mainly for its daintiness. And then there's a
Yeah.
male fern that's uh, just it really just kind of arbitrarily named, just for the common names anyway. But yeah, it's just interesting random things of that. But I'm convinced that there is some really deep seated meaning to what this is because you don't just like randomly pick those three things and put them on someone's arm on your main
Make a point.
character.
Yeah, and make a point of them being visible, like on her arm as she strums the guitar. Like that's definitely an
Hmm.
intentional choice on audio.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
also the circulation of high resolution pictures and the constant tweets of like this is like the stages of us drawing this on one of our
yes,
team
like
members'
yeah, I
arms
was
and like
surprised at how deeply they delved into that, and
yeah.
I'm like, okay, okay, so yeah, this is something important for
Yeah, so it's
sure.
going to be a really big anchor point, I think, to what her motivations, or at least relate to her motivations of this game and what's going on. But I think
I mean,
I think the thing with Joel being dead is an extremely good theory from what my view of what this game would be.
yeah, it's an extremely fun theory, like
Yeah.
it's very like, oh wow, that would be really cool.
Hmm.
Like that's one of those, oh man, I'd love to have the rug pulled out from under me that way.
Yeah.
I think what's probably exciting me about this most is that, well, with Uncharted 4, one of the biggest advancements I thought Naughty Dog made was that because the facial detail was so accurate and so nuanced, you actually got more expressive characters. And there were cutscenes and moments in Uncharted 4 where you could read something about what somebody was feeling or
Hmm.
thinking that was going unsaid, and that's very rare in games to where
Yeah.
it's so mimics real life that you can actually read a character like you would read a person.
Yeah.
And that was just we just got the cusp of that in Uncharted 4.
Hmm.
If we look at Ellie, Joel, and a handful of other main characters being similarly detailed as we just saw Ellie in this trailer, like we're gonna see that taken to a new level, which just means guarantee Last of Us Part 2 is going to be incredibly emotionally affecting. Not that it
Hmm.
wasn't already or in the first game, but just to a level that really like sells this new generation. Like this is where we're actually using technology
Right.
to sell better stories, to tell better stories.
Yeah, and it's just going to be another case of Naughty Dog spoiling it for the rest of the industry, pretty much. Because it's just like, I'm trying to remember what I played after I played Uncharted 4, but it's just like, it's doing Uncharted 4 and then like other games that are out there. I think, but like the biggest, like starkest difference to me are like I'm trying to remember what I played before it, but going to Deus Ex and then going to
Yeah,
like
yeah,
even Final Fantasy 15 has like decent and well, I mean like the totally scripted CG cutscenes are extremely well done, but there's like this weird like there's no really animation. All the animation focuses like the mouth pretty much,
yeah,
and the in game scenes and stuff, and like the eyes and stuff, and the cheekbones, nothing or cheek muscles don't move or anything like that. Where it's like,
exactly.
yeah, it's I didn't think I was really wanted this, but I still don't know if I actually want this, but I'm really excited for it nonetheless.
Yeah, as am I. I think, like, if nothing else, like, it may never top The Last of Us Part One in terms of story or just the way it made you feel the first time you
Hmm.
played it. But if nothing else, this seems like a well-intentioned kind of
Yeah.
successor. Like it's coming from the best possible place. So sometimes that's all I need to know. Like
Hmm.
sometimes that's all I need to know is just that it's coming with the best intentions and there's a good heart behind it. And then if it doesn't measure up, then there's other reasons for it.
Yeah.
It's not just because they were trying to make money.
Yeah, and I'm actually kind of hoping that this game is going to just feel like a different game. Like it's just going to feel like a new game. It's not going to feel like more of The Last of Us.
Oh, I could,
Like
yeah, I
I
could without the crafting, like
yeah.
just have totally different game systems.
Right. Well, I mean, it could even be very similar in a lot of ways or same mechanics and stuff. But I think enough time has gone by too, where it's just like it would feel like a new game to me almost at this point with everything else that I've
Yeah,
played. Like it's, but just having having that complete narrative split too of being more about love, or the first one about love, and this is more about hate. I feel like it's a good way to just kind of set it apart from its previous game. So
as if the game could get any darker.
right, yeah,
Here it
that's
comes
that's the
with full
thing.
of hate.
It's like
It's
yeah,
like,
when they
oh, the
first heard
theme of
that,
Last of Us Part One was love. Oh,
yeah, pretty much,
was it?
yeah. That's what it's. That was kind of funny when yeah, first hearing that. I was like,
Oh
The
my
Last of
god.
Us Part Two is about hate. It was like, was
Oh,
it the
oh,
first one? It's just like, it's kind of
oh
like,
my.
yeah.
No
But
doubt.
anyway, the last part I wanted to mention on this is that Neil Druckmann confirmed that the story for The Last of Us is going to be co-written by I think Hallie Goss is how you say her name. I hope I said that right. And she's one who actually directed two episodes of Westworld, the new HBO series,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she
I saw
did
that.
story editor for On the Stray and Chestnut or other things that she's done as well. But I actually am just before in the series of watching one of the ones that she's directed for Westworld. Like I'm catching up on that show right now.
Are her episodes in the later half of the season?
Episode 6 and episode 7 are the two that
Oh, okay.
she did. And
Gotcha.
I'm just about to watch episode 6 right now. So I almost had a good way to talk about what I thought of her writing or directing for
Yeah.
this. But you said you have seen those, so how would you think if you can
Well,
remember those specific events, or I don't know if it's been too long, but
no, what I'm actually going to do just real quick is get those summaries so I can remember exactly what happened in those. 'Cause as soon as I know just like
right,
the big points, I'll be able to be like, okay, that was that episode.
sure. And
Uh,
obviously we'll keep it spoiler free for anybody who hasn't
yeah, yeah,
watched
yeah,
the
of course, I
show,
don't.
including me. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but yeah, it's just like
Um,
that show from what I've seen up to this point, and it's I'm absolutely in love with it. So hearing somebody who's been a creative mind behind part of that show, and also working with Neil Druckmann, who has created some of the greatest game stories that we've had in recent history, it's just
this
really
is so,
exciting.
yeah. I mean, I might be reading too much into what happened in, like
Hmm.
now that I know that she directed these episodes,
Yeah.
maybe I'm drawing too many parallels, but there's interesting angles here. I mean, episode 6 in particular, that's the one you are going to watch next, yes?
Yeah, The Adversary, I believe is called.
Yep, the adversary.
Hmm.
That episode in particular is the kickoff point toward what I would argue is just a successive series of reveals leading into the finale, and in particular, this episode um, has we talk about The Last of Us and character animation and what that says about characters. There's a lot of introspection here, like very
Hmm.
small scale, sort of intimate human moments That, as is the case with most HBO shows, that reveal surprising things. But in
Yeah,
particular, it's very this six in particular. I haven't looked at the seven synopsis. Is a very like human vulnerability, emotional sort of spilling out your soul kind of moment.
sure.
Which there's one scene of episode six in particular that I can recall in my mind's eye that I mean, certainly it's not ripped out of The Last of Us, with it's not,
Hmm.
zombies post-apocalyptic, but you could almost see it being like a Last of Us cutscene, with the way the camera is framed, with the way just
Hmm. Okay.
certain things are kept in shot or out of shot, certain things are surprising. So, yeah, it's fun to draw the parallels. I feel like we will probably get season two of Westworld before this game comes out. Like I have no doubt about that. So it'd be interesting if Haley comes back to do
Well,
more.
season 2 is like 2018, isn't it? I don't think it comes
Yeah,
out.
yes, and even so, I think
Jeez.
there's no, I
Yeah, I mean, well, how long was it before when we saw the first trailer of The Last of Us? I think it was a
I
couple
want to say
years.
I want to say it was 2 years.
I think it was 2 years.
Last of Us
Because I
reveal.
think we didn't get the controller drop scene until like year and a half or more after the.
Development of The Last of Us. Let me see. Announcement. December 20. Well, games was revealed in December 2011,
Okay.
and it was released in 2013,
Okay.
June 2013. So about a year and a half, a little more than a year and a half. But that said, I think like the writings on the wall where they have even said with respect to this game, like it's rare that Sony will just say this is super early, like this is just like very
Yeah.
very. And Neil said that during the panel. Sean said that before they showed it on stage. I think they're probably weary or leery of making more delays like they did with Uncharted. So
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's
yeah,
true. But yeah,
given the timeline, I mean, 2018 would be that feels way too soon to me. I think summer 2019 is more realistic.
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Naughty Dog can take as long as they want on their games.
And they should. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's like
nobody's
they've proven that I think they've earned the right to do that at this point, just to be
no
able to
doubt.
make whatever they want whenever they want for however long they want because it's just going to be good. It's just like it's a fact at this point.
Another game that's going to take a really long time?
Hmm.
Death Stranding.
Segue.
Segue.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that as a news topic. I'm glad that you
Yeah,
remembered
man.
that. All right.
The big news. I mean, of course, we got a new trailer during the Game Awards on Thursday, which is man, this is actually going back a little ways now. The Thursday before PSX, I think it was either November 30th or December 1st. We got a new trailer featuring Mads Mikkelsen, Guillermo del
Oh
Toro,
God, Mads.
Mads.
I love Mads.
He, I believe it has been confirmed since then that he is playing the game's antagonist or one of them. I think you could take that vibe from the trailer pretty clearly. But the big story, I think, from PSX was Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding panel, where he sat down and revealed that the Death Stranding game engine is a modified version of the Horizon Zero Dawn engine being made by Guerrilla Games. So that was a big question, right? Because Mark Cerny and Kojima went on a worldwide bro trip to all the Sony studios, searching for engines.
I really
Like
hope they
half a
filmed
year ago.
that. There needs to be like a documentary of that in like a
Oh
year
God,
or
wouldn't that be
two.
awesome? They
Be
just visit
amazing.
like Media Molecule for 20 minutes, Gorilla for 20 minutes, Insomniac for 20 minutes. Yeah, that'd be amazing. So yeah, the engine is called Decima, and at the panel, Kojima, Mark Cerny, and Herman Holst, I believe the manager or creative director behind Guerrilla Games, just kind of laid it all out there for everyone to take in. So Hideo fell in love with the engine during that road trip, but he also fell in love with the people of
Hmm.
Guerrilla Games. And according to Kojima, that was one of the major factors behind his decision to work with Guerrilla was the people and the way they
Sure.
received him. Ernest again did a
As
great
a
job.
god.
Yeah, they presented the source code of the Horizon engine to Kojima in a wooden box. on a flash drive, like the Sword of a Thousand Truths.
Oh, so good.
Oh.
Oh,
Um, so a few tidbits from the panel that I thought were interesting around the engine. Norman Reedus and Mads Mikkelsen will act out their characters both in motion capture and voice. So it
oh,
sounds like they're channeling Uncharted in that respect.
perfect.
Probably building some fake sets. Yeah, exactly.
I
I think
mean,
that's a
Mads
great.
Mads Mikkelsen would just like so much of his gravitas would be lost if it wasn't him through and through
Right, and
doing
it's
it.
and it's physical with him, right? So much
Yeah,
of it is physical, facial as well.
yeah.
That's huge.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The nuances that he can convey, just the creepy, just like intensity that he can make with the slightest
Because you're
movement.
coming from a Hannibal
Yeah,
place, right?
primarily, yeah. It was like Hannibal, and he was absolutely perfect. I think my friend who read all of the books on that said that he was the only thing that was wrong about his portrayal as Hannibal, in his opinion, was that he was like a few inches too short from what like the books have described. Then that's not something you can change, but everything else, yeah, it's like
Yeah. Well, if you're like the Lord of the Rings, you can build all the sets to be a few inches smaller.
right, yeah,
So Kojima knew Guerrilla was the right partner because of not only the technology but the people. There's a picture here from our the PSU.com Twitter feed of the box they presented it to him. And then they explain a little bit about the name Decima. It says that Decima is named after the goddess of childbirth, plus the Japanese pronunciation Dejima is a real island with both Japanese and Dutch history. So the
okay,
name Decima was given presumably after Kojima's visit to symbolize the collaboration between Guerrilla Games being Dutch and Kojima Productions being Japanese.
hmm.
So really, I mean, I think the big thing to take from this is that, well, for one thing, Kojima improved the lighting in the Decima engine and handed it back to Guerrilla. I thought that was super interesting. Like he just comes in and shows them the true potential of their own engine.
Yeah,
And now it's a place where the two studios, Guerrilla and Kojima Productions, are going back and forth to improve the engine. And in fact, there are full-time Kojima Productions staff who are now working in the Guerrilla Games office. It's like Kojima Amsterdam or something like that. So kind of an offshoot to
okay.
work on the technology and probably receive feedback from Kojima in Japan and try to work with Guerrilla to twist the engine in a way
Hmm.
that suits that. So all that to me is super super encouraging, and I think the topic of conversation here is is this going to have a beneficial impact on Kojima's final game? And I think it will. I think
Hmm.
it sounds from everything we've heard about his final days at Konami and the lack of support he had there. This seems to me like the direct opposite of that. Like he has total creative,
Hmm.
just absolute free reign. You know, he's got a dedicated
Yeah.
tech team in Amsterdam, and really he's got the full might of Guerrilla's engineers that he can tap into if he wants to. You know, like, hey, this thing isn't working, why not? And Guerrilla
Hmm.
goes, oh, well, here's why, or
Yeah.
here's what it can and can't do. And then he gets to, you know, back in the Japanese headquarters, just work on, you know, the gameplay and the storyboarding, and you know, not have to busy himself so much with creating an engine to match. It sounds like he's going to make his idea meld with the engine that's already there.
Hmm. Well, I think I just love the fact that in this conversation and in all conversations basically talked about this on any site is that basically equating a single man of Hideo Kojima to an entire game studio as being equals in what they're
Yeah.
doing. I just think that's just incredible for a number of reasons, but it's pretty accurate. Where it's just like, yeah, he came in and he could figure out how to make a studio's engine run more efficiently. Um,
His-
but yeah, it's really gone back to being his project. It's not in anybody else's control. Like there are other people who are invested in it and have stakes in it, but it's gone back to being his full creative reign on where this direction is going to take or what the direction is going to take and where things end up, and just seeing the caliber of the studios that is the caliber of Guerrilla Games itself as the studio that's going to be supporting him, his own team that he handpicked months ago for
right from his
after he
old.
left, and then also the caliber of the acting support that he's got there, and having also directive support with Guillermo del Toro, and
It's
like
really incredible.
it's just
It,
absurd almost to think like
I,
this is just the thing that is going to happen eventually. It's just
it's
like
like I don't get where his Hollywood posse suddenly came from. It's like Kojima's just, you know, he's very much like he's a celebrity in our world, but
yeah.
he's very much a celebrity of our world. And yet all of a
Hmm.
sudden I likened him, at the time to like this apostle, and now all of a sudden he's got Norman Reedus and Mads Mikkelsen and Guillermo del Toro have just
Yeah,
signed on for the craziness. Like, yep, sign me up. I'm
right.
gonna take this trip with you.
Yeah, it's just like
And
that. Yeah, Guillermo and then Norman Reedus both just like fully committed to just like unwaveringly supporting him after like their
yes,
failed thing. They're just like, no, we need to do something with this man because it's
no,
just like,
he's a genius.
and
No way.
it's just to command that much enthusiasm and respect and support is just
Well, Guillermo even tweeted during the Game Awards when Jeff Keighley gave Hideo the award he should have
mhm.
gotten last year when he wasn't allowed to attend.
Yep.
At that moment, Guillermo tweeted, "Fuck Konami." I'm like,
Yeah.
how old is this? Guillermo del Toro tweets, "Fuck Konami." Like
uh,
he knows anything about. I mean, I'm sure he does. He probably knows a lot more than we do. But it's
right.
just here's this Hollywood guy, here's this movie director and
Yeah.
TV
Well,
show
it's just
director.
it's this. These last couple of years have just been like a real clashing of two worlds, pretty much in
It
entertainment,
really
two
has,
entertainment
yeah.
worlds, and just seeing
No,
them
no.
merge together more. It's just
I mean,
it's
I'm
really exciting.
It is. It is. Like everything around Death Stranding has me excited, which is also a little frustrating because I know it's going to be so long before this game comes out, and yet here are these trailers, here are these cutscenes where it's like, I'm sure the gameplay doesn't even really exist yet, but man, does this
Yeah.
look beautiful,
Right.
And you just gotta wonder, like, what kind of game is this gonna be? Like,
Pretty much.
you can't
Didn't he?
just
He said it's supposed to be like an action adventure type of thing, isn't it? It was like that was the last thing we heard.
did say like, yeah, an action.
Like more action focused than like the Metal Gear Solid games or something. And it's just like, well, what does that mean? It's
Right?
like,
Like how could that possibly be the case when I'm like Guillermo is hiding under a bridge and
hmm
like World War I skeletons are
yeah.
running
And
above
Norman
him.
Reedus is naked on a beach holding a dead baby. It's like,
Mads
okay,
Mikkelsen is bleeding from the eyes again.
yeah, pretty much. It's like, all right, but yeah, it's. I really can't wait until like we have to end up seeing something more this E3 as to like just to. I'm guessing it's just going to be another little tease. Nothing gameplay obviously yet by any means, but
Yeah, see,
it's
I'd be totally fine if like we just got little 3-minute teases twice a year or even once a year. They could
and
even
all of them connect to each other.
all of them, yeah, all of them connect to each other at certain time points, and like people just put together these clues, and then finally down the road, like 4 months before release, we find out the release date, and oh, here's like 10 minutes of actual gameplay, so that you just like that would just create so much confidence for me in the final product, and
Hmm.
I'm so wary of this becoming like a I don't think it'll be as bad as The Last Guardian because there's just too much support here and the engine is already built and it clearly runs very, very well. But like, I don't want it to be a case where they go on hiatus and they're completely silent and then speculation runs wild and I just give him all the time he needs, give him all the creative freedom he needs, and just show me enough pieces to keep my confidence level up because
Hmm.
like I am skeptical that this grand illusion is going to turn out to be something amazing, but I certainly hope so.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's. I just don't even know what to think of it at this point. That's just like this crazy. It's like it is like a crazy dream. Is like what's happening on screen when you watch these things, and it's just like,
I mean, you're like, and it's crazy too because we're so used to Metal Gear Solid being his thing. It's like,
yeah,
wow,
that's the
Kojima's working on
craziest thing.
what
Yeah.
now? Like, and you had all the Mads Mikkelsen fans. I saw a bunch of tweets that were gathered together of these Mads Mikkelsen fans just going like, "What is this Death Stranding nonsense?" Like they
Hmm.
see the game pop up in his Twitter account because they're super fans, but they have no idea what gaming's all about or what Kojima's all about.
Right.
So even in the fans, there's a merging of worlds.
Yeah. Well, it's. I think this is just a great. I think it's very fitting that he's kind of the guiding hand behind this industry move that's happening, really, and that's just going to be end up being really, really good for everyone over the next couple decades. I think just having more of a. We've already been getting more of a cinematic focus in games, but having the actual members of the cinematic world taking a strong role in games themselves is just really encouraging, I think.
Absolutely,
Um,
100%.
but yeah, as you mentioned this, mentioning the Last Guardian before, I haven't played it,
Segue.
so I can't speak to it. This headline just really caught my attention when I was looking through some of the topics on PSU to see what we wanted to cover today, and it was The Last Guardian ending, how to make sure you don't skip the full sequence. And that just
Hmm.
is absolutely absurd to me that that's even something that exists.
That's even yeah, that's even
Like,
possible.
so my it's mainly a lead into a broader question is
Sure.
like how for games and so is like is that even okay by any means? Like should for how strict should developers be when they're making a game to, or how much of a responsibility do they have to obviously deliver their full game to you, or how much of it should be, well, I don't even know for this particular thing. I didn't read about it because I don't want to
Yeah.
spoil anything, if it was more of just like a built-in thing where like you can actually accidentally skip a scene if you're not paying attention,
Um.
or if it's like if you don't do a certain thing a certain way you won't see this thing and there's no way of knowing that, or
So
it's
this is a
just
thing. Well, so yeah, I think I could add a little. It's
yeah.
a good question, but I'll just add a bit of levity in the case of The Last Guardian.
Hmm.
Um, the game is so mysterious and holds your attention so so tightly, grips it so tightly that the possibility of you missing the full engine, or the full engine, the full ending, I would say is very slim because the way it goes is that basically if you just stay in game and basically you're only going to miss the full ending if you just suddenly turn your game off, you know? Like
Hmm.
there is a part of the ending that purposefully looks kind of like a previous scene in the game, like the framing of the camera is very similar.
Okay.
And because of that, I think there's the possibility that people could be fooled into thinking, "Oh, the game has just started over," or the game has just
Okay, so
and
is
in
this
that
like an after credit scene type of deal, or is this
um I'm tr yes, this is after credits.
okay?
Yes.
Well, then
So
that's
so
yeah.
so in some ways it's understandable, but if you just sit there for even like 20 seconds or 30 seconds, you immediately realize, okay, that was, that's it's meant to
Hmm.
mirror a previous scene,
Oh, okay.
and then you let it play out. It's not like so basically, if you see that and don't wait for 20 or 30 seconds to see what happens, like is a
Hmm.
menu about to pop up or what's the deal, and you just immediately go out to the menu and close application, that's how you would miss it.
Okay.
So I think in that sense, like that didn't even occur to me, of course, because I was so enraptured in the game and I'm just waiting because there's
Hmm.
unanswered questions. I'm waiting to see what happens. But in general, I think definitely game developers have a responsibility to take how to describe it though, like reasonable measers to
Hmm.
properly communicate their story. I think with The Last Guardian, I feel like it's fine because there's
Yeah,
artistic.
that sounds fine. Yeah, that sounds totally fine to me. If it's like, if it's, I mean, people have been so conditioned at this point with movies in general that there are after credit scenes that it's just like, even with like, I just wrapped up Final Fantasy 15 last night, and I sat through everything just to make sure that I didn't miss anything because I'm so conditioned to expecting
Hmm.
something to show up at the end. So it's
Yeah,
and
that's just a reflex at
I
this
and I
point.
also just I like sitting through the credits of a game after beating it because I just feel like that's just kind of a respectful thing to do, to at least see a couple of names of
No,
the
no
people who
doubt.
made the game. But
Especially so
yeah.
with TLG because you just want to reflect on that journey. Like at least
Hmm.
that's how I felt. Like it was such an emotional roller coaster that I just wanted to sit back and take it in for a bit. So
Right.
yeah, but no, in general, and I can't. It's definitely going to be tough for game designers to do this elegantly, but you can't hide the bottom line. It's not worth it being
Hmm.
super artistic and super esoteric if it means that most players aren't going to see this really, really cool thing that you made for a reason. I mean, if you have a secret ending or a after credits scene like with Marvel, I
Hmm.
mean, and often now we're getting to a point where Marvel they have two mid credit scenes,
Yeah,
right? Because they
basically.
know that some people just want that satisfaction right away, and as creators, I think you want to share that with people. So
Hmm.
why would you obfuscate it?
Does the Last Guardian have the ability to go and back and watch cutscenes from the main menu?
I don't believe it does. No.
Okay, so I mean that would be an easy thing I would think to satisfy that, but But yeah, there's a lot of things. So basically, I think a better way to frame the question then, since I don't find issue with the Last Guardian, then since you've explained it, it's more of how much control how obvious should developers make their story experiences if they have a story to tell. Like Final Fantasy is an easy one to pick
Hmm.
on because it's very open world for the most part, and there's just a lot of things you're just gonna miss for some of the small things. I mean, like you're like collecting the ancestor swords, basically ancestor
Mm.
weapons around the world. If you
Yeah.
don't go do certain areas or find a dungeon or whatever, you're just gonna not have that when you're going through it. That's not
And
something
there's
that really impacts the story because there isn't like a scene that corresponds with each one of them
no, it's pretty
when you
minimal.
get
I
it.
mean, just
So
little dialogue. Yeah.
right, so you have things like that, but then there's also types that I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this.
No, I'm thinking of there's a game that's on the tip of my tongue that does this or did this, I should say, where
Hmm.
it was really easy to miss. Maybe Persona 4 might be a loose example where the side stories are very, very optional, like the side
Oh
character
yeah.
tracks and everything.
Hmm.
You can totally play through the entire game and miss arguably most of them. Like you could miss 80% of what that game has to offer, and it's really only through going through on my trophy run that I was like, good lord, this game
Yeah.
is so much deeper than I thought it was.
Hmm.
And there's actual good stuff there. Like none of it's main plot critical, but like,
Yeah.
wow, I really appreciate Yukiko more than I did before, or I really understand Kanji more than I did before. And
Sure.
those
Yep.
things, like some of that, I would argue is pretty essential. Like it would be a shame if somebody just played through Persona 4 once and just fast tracked it. Like how quickly can I play through the story? Like 50 hours or something,
Right.
and missed all that because that was the whole point of the game in my mind was
Yeah.
getting those
Well, I guess
character moments.
I think that raises a better question than what I was trying to fumble my way through, trying to decide on something. Is how much should a developer encourage replaying a game for a better experience versus delivering everything it has to offer in the first playthrough? Because
Sure.
I'm thinking about wrapping up some of the stuff in Final Fantasy 15, going back and playing stuff and things like that. But I've already put over 45 hours into this game, and I don't want to spend that much time again. And even actually, that kind of leads into one of the other things that I was going to talk about was that they've confirmed a roadmap for updates for 15,
Hmm.
and that they want to add playable characters, and they want to add better mechanics to some of the things that you do later in the game. They want to add more voices and story things, and it's just like that's not something you should add after people have already played the game for 60 hours and just say, well,
Right.
now you can play it again in the future. It's like, no, I don't want to have to play this again to get the full experience.
Or you don't want to feel like
I
the
don't want to feel
experience you had was lesser, you know?
right. Yeah, I don't want to feel like I got screwed out of the real experience of the game because I was an early adopter when really maybe you should have waited another year
Mm,
to bring
yeah.
out the game. So that's where my mind was originally going. I forgot about that article that I had up before. So yeah, it's just like should developers really encourage replaying a game to get their full content of it after you've paid for it and put the hours in? Because it's the only medium that does this in any way
No,
like
of
that.
course. Yeah, no movie is going to ask you to
Hmm.
gotta rewatch it for one extra scene. I mean, you can fast forward to scenes like in director's cuts, you can kind of just pick out like, okay,
Yeah,
here's the 30 minutes that I didn't see in
pretty
theaters or
much.
whatever. Yeah, I think well, with games where I think that's okay is if the first experience and the second experience are like markedly different in some way. Like if
Hmm.
you as the designer have okay, when a player puts my disc in for the first time and plays it through 15 hours, 14 hours, whatever, this is these are the feelings I want them to have. This is the atmosphere I want to establish for them. And then if on the replay your goal is not simply to extract more playtime from that person, your goal is to actually be like, okay, now the feeling of playing it a second time, I want to be very different. And this is funny because Persona almost fits this as well, where
Hmm.
the first playthrough is very mysterious and like that game has such like a weird sort of vibe of the unknown. You just really don't know what's going to happen, and like the mystery behind the town is very, very
Yeah.
interesting, and you miss so much stuff, like I said. But then the second time through, the tone of the game was almost so much more lighthearted on that second time because I was
Hmm.
investing so much into the school stories and the side stories with people around the town that it
Yeah.
almost became like a life simulator that second time.
Yep.
So Persona 4 gets a pass. The game's amazing,
Well, I
you
think it
know.
gets a pass in a number of ways too because it's a more of a mystery game where you don't want to know everything that's happening in your first playthrough.
True.
I think that
Yeah.
it's more about exploring and finding out answers than just consuming a story.
Yeah,
Like
agreed.
so,
And then,
I think yeah, Persona is a very special game. I think it does get a pass in some
but
ways, but
in general, I think like it can come off as nefarious with other examples. Like
yeah.
I'm gonna save Final Fantasy for a little bit now, and
Hmm.
come back to it later. But there is a risk whenever you talk about these things, like you're burning bridges or
Hmm.
you're taking your fans for granted in a way that says, you know what, like this is something, this is so. And Final Fantasy is, I guess, a good example in this regard. This is so clearly a thing that they knew they were gonna do
Yeah. Oh yeah.
months ago, right? Like you can't. The game has only been out for just under 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
Um, and this announcement was made earlier this week. And it's like you can't respond so quickly to fan feedback in forums about how slim, how threadbare the story is in places,
Hmm.
and just immediately be like, okay, well, in response, we have this multi-month roadmap of. It's like
Yeah.
no, like there was clearly internally they had some idea that the story had gaping holes in places, but
Hmm.
they weighed that cost against the need to recuperate some of their development costs like immediately. And
Yeah.
I'm sure, and I don't place that necessarily on Tabata, the director. I'm sure it came from higher than he. But yeah, I guess it's really unfortunate because in this case, I do feel like that second playthrough that they seem to want you to have at a later date, like I'm not convinced, like Persona, that it will be different enough to warrant it. It's really just, oh, this is a bummer because this is like the premiere version of the game, you know, or this is
Yeah.
how it maybe should have been all along.
Right. Well, it's like the first thing that they have on their roadmap for their short-term goals is saying, first we will update the experience of Chapter 13's gameplay. It's like, what? It's like, why would you do that? It's like, no. It's like, I get that you want to have your game be. It may not be how you envisioned it to be, but you've released it already, and probably a good 70% of your player base has already experienced that chapter.
Hmm.
So it's like, who are you
Certainly,
really
early
helping at that
critics did.
point?
It's weird because early critics did. I mean, people played, you know, the game before release, and like I
Yeah.
don't remember gameplay issues or balancing issues even being brought up. You know, so that's kind of
Yeah,
weird in
no, it's
itself.
just yeah, and I know what the spot that they're talking about, but it's just like it didn't really need it. I get that it was kind of I get how they would think that they or I can see the reasoning why they would want to add something maybe to that, but it's like it's not necessary. There's other things that I think should have been dealt with before, but it's like you can't take away the existing experience that was happened and basically magically fix it.
Yeah,
And it's like it's not changing anything. It's not going to change anything for me. It just makes me feel like I got ruined for me almost because I played it too quickly or something. It's like this
yeah,
weird.
like how dare you play it so quickly to release? Like how dare you go out and buy the game, be a fan of it, and consume it, and really
Yeah,
really enjoy it, and then all of a sudden you're like,
yeah. This is
oh
really how it
oh
should have been.
yeah,
So yeah,
oh,
and
I
it's like
wasn't supposed to enjoy it then. Like you just get such weird vibes.
yeah, it's just it was like yeah, not that they're not that Square is being nefarious and wanting to do these do evil things with their games or something, but it's just like it's just a really strange. I've never had this happen before with a game that I've played where it was like
Yeah, let alone Final Fantasy. Like
yeah,
a
so it's like so
single player.
did I play the game the right way? It's like that's kind of what it feels like is like
Sure,
did I
sure.
get the right experience from this? And it's just like
Yeah, I think like the way I'm approaching the announcement is, you know, of course I'm only about halfway through the game. I'm not, you know, haven't finished it, but I'm approaching it like this is a finished product, even if it isn't like a flawless product.
Hmm.
And in my mind, like this is the story they released. This is the story they wanted to release at the time that it came out. And if nothing else, like it bothers me that Square is having almost buyer's remorse or
Yeah.
seller's remorse.
Well,
But
it's like an author giving you like the third draft of a book, and then they come out with the final draft like months later, and then they like replace your book with it, and it's like,
they go and tell you, you like, and you like go back to them. You're like, yeah, I read your third draft. It's awesome. Oh, that draft sucked.
yeah, it's like, oh yeah, we added so
It's
many more
really
story. We added a lot of backstory to this character in like the second chapter, and it's like, well, I'm already on chapter 10. It's like I'm not gonna go back and it's like
yeah.
these really weird things. It's just like this just doesn't happen anywhere.
No, it
So it's
doesn't.
like it's a very new territory in the game for games and stuff. Just like
For sure.
I
It
I, I just don't really know what to say to this. It's like,
I guess in a word, I would call it careless. Like
yeah,
on the part of the author or the creator in any medium, like you brought up books. If this same thing were to happen, I would turn to that author and say, you know, it was careless of you to give me something that you didn't have true resolve in. Because even if they put it out,
right.
and
That's the biggest thing that's bothering me. I think is that they
I'm sure
couldn't
that they,
stand by their game that they gave out. They have to go back and fix it, and I
I
don't. Uh,
Yeah, I think what probably happened is that in the month or two leading up to release, they realized that parts of the story were disappointing or missing backstory, missing motivations, whatever. Then they said, well, let's put it out there because we feel that way as creators, but maybe the fans won't notice. And then, like, day two, day three, the fans clearly noticed and let them know
yeah.
about it. They're like, oh, well, don't worry, we've got a roadmap. But it's like, you know, if you didn't have an unshakable confidence in your game from the get-go,
Hmm.
you like that's the careless part. Like that speaks to me of not taking care with your product and not having the confidence, the conviction to stand behind it.
Yeah, and why don't you put all that effort in the what you take that feedback and put it towards a better, different game,
Yeah, which is what
not the
most
same.
people do. That's why this makes it so weird.
Yeah, it's just like don't, and it's not like it's an evolving game where
No,
like it's not an evolving world where you can go back. Like people are going to be going back to it.
and it's not like 14 where the original game was just an unmitigated disaster, like a
Right.
garbage truck on fire that
Yeah.
needed to be replaced. This game is actually good, if not great. Like most people
Yeah.
agree that it's a really really solid Final Fantasy game. So
Yeah.
that's what makes it weird is that you don't get to just hit the reset button on something that's actually good. Like this is where you
Hmm.
take what you've learned and move on. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's just it seems like there's a lot of the team on this, like this being their first real like making this game being their first real Final Fantasy to set them apart from the previous Final Fantasy games as a team. It just feels like they're overly self-conscious of how people are reacting to it, and they're just like, "Oh no, we can make it better." Like, don't please love
yeah,
our game. As like we want you to love everything about it, and it's like, no, you made a great game. You made an amazing game in a lot
yeah.
of ways. It's just
Stand
like,
behind it and
yeah,
own up.
make an even better. Now it's the time for you to focus on making an even better one for everyone to look forward to. Not going back and fixing things that most of your fan base is not going to play again because you're competing in such a saturated market as it is with so many
Yeah,
other games vying for your attention that it's just wasted energy from how I see it.
yeah, if I play the game again someday, which I'm sure I will, it won't be because of what they've added. It'll be because I just want to replay it. And whenever they do release, and that's the thing too, this is going to be a multi, like it could be a year before we see like the English translation of whatever new thing that they're working on is.
Oh yeah.
So you know, if you take all that lead time into account, it could be so long before this roadmap even comes to fruition that I'm at a point I'm just going to watch those scenes on YouTube. Like that's what I did with the Mass Effect ending
Yeah,
from
really. Yeah, if
Fire
it's anything that's cutscene wise, that I'm not going to go back and play through it.
No, just to get that flavor.
Yeah.
No need. Well, I have a confession. You kind of stole my last topic.
Oh, okay.
In a way, though, my question was going to be now that the I hate to use the word damage because the game is like a solid 8, 8.5 in my book right now. So,
Hmm.
but now that the game is out and it factually or objectively has these weak story moments that Square believes need fixing, my question would have been, what is the right thing for Square to do right now? Is it to work on addressing those things and making an improved game, or is it to forget about those things, acknowledge them, and move on. It sounds like we've both sort of
Yeah.
landed on the
I think
latter.
it's just the dangerous nature of patches. It's become way too tempting, I think, for developers to just get too fixated on a single project. Being
In a
say, oh,
single
we can tweak
problem.
this, we can make this better, we can do this. It's like, no, this is your game. I mean, just coming from more of a classical art background, where it's just you produce a product, that's all it is. You can't change it once it's been exposed and once it's been presented to the public. Whether it's like traditional art, like paintings or anything like that, or books or movies or anything. It's like once it's out there, it's out there. You can have additions later that say, hey, like this is the time where wait, you take all of the feedback you have, you work on this. In a couple of years, you have like the definitive version or something like that. You know, you have an updated version of it where it's like movies do that, where it's like they clean up scenes or they add some like little behind the scenes stuff or they add like an extended scene or like things like that. It's like you don't immediately go back and say like, oh yeah, this part sucked, so we're going to be fixing this later type of
Yeah,
thing. It's like
if anything, you just
for this, yeah,
give it like a gestation period and come back to us in a month and say, you know what, we agree. Like that moment of the game could have been handled better. This character's motivations could have been conveyed better. Um, we apologize for that element of the story, and we'll do it better next time. Like that's really all it
yeah,
is. You can,
not lay
I'm,
out a roadmap for
yeah,
a
yeah.
couple of years.
Nobody wants you to fix your art, but you can
Yeah,
certainly acknowledge that the art is flawed or that the art is
right. And it's different
imperfect.
since if this was like a online game to some degree, it'd be very different because you'd expect people to be playing this and they'd want it to be fixed over a course of like a period of time.
Yeah, there's a competitive.
But it's just a
Um,
completely single player exclusive experience that's contained within itself. Like
mhm.
there's nothing. It's it just seems like a total waste to me to be
Yeah.
doing this. Why don't you focus on other things?
Yep, that's my answer too. Where don't try, like, I've already had your experience. Don't waste any of your time or resources trying to retroactively fix something that I've already tasted, you know?
Yeah,
Like, you're just wasting, like, in essence, you really are. You guys are just wasting your time. I mean, the only people this is going to benefit is, like, I don't know, the maybe 500,000 people who will buy the game from November 2017 and onward, you know, who just happened to wait a year before buying it, and then by then it's like, oh, cool, the story's fleshed out.
right.
But for the rest of us, like, you really are just wasting your time because you can't give us that back.
Mm-hmm.
Can't give us that first impression back anyway.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
Well, how about a little palate cleanser? Let's talk Crash Bandicoot
Oh
at
God.
for the end of this show.
Okay, I don't know
Uh,
anything. I didn't. I totally missed any of the Crash stuff
oh
at
man, I'd be happy
PSX.
to catch you up.
So
So they showed a trailer with gameplay for Crash Bandicoot: The Insane Trilogy, which is the official title for the collection.
okay, yep.
So yeah, well, that was the big question going in. Is like, okay, they announced this Crash Bandicoot coming back moment at E3, but what does
Yeah,
that mean?
and
Like, what
his
does that look like?
brand new look that you've loved.
Well, here's the thing, though. He does not look that way in this game, the way he
Thank
does in
God.
Skylanders. Yeah, and in fact, I'm actually a huge fan of how he looks here.
Oh, okay.
So people can check that out, you know, after listening to the cast if they haven't seen it already. But essentially, the Insane Trilogy is the first three Naughty Dog games: Crash 1, Cortex Strikes Back, and Warped, remade from the ground up with modern graphics, with next
Mm-hmm.
gen fur, next gen colors, next gen, you know,
Yeah, I'm looking at
detail.
screenshots on here now.
Yeah, there's a really good one on the PlayStation blog. I don't know if that's where you happen to land.
I'm just on Google Images.
Oh, okay. I'll
They
drop a link.
look. I mean, they look pretty good.
I threw a link there for you to check out. But yeah, so the you know, more details came out after the show, and what were essentially that this developed by Vicarious Visions, which is, you know, in-house at Activision.
Hmm.
So it's not like, you know, Sony hasn't gotten Crash Bandicoot back, but nevertheless, I think there's a lot of reasons to be confident here because what they've basically done is taken Naughty Dog's original blueprints of all three games. Like, this is to the pixel, this is the level geometry. And that's what they're using as the building block for remaking the games. So essentially, they can't use Naughty Dog's code, and in fact, it might be unusable 3 generations later anyway.
Yeah.
Might be just a waste of time to even try. So they're just taking, they, as a studio, extensively played and replayed all the original games to understand what made them special, the animations, the color, the characters, the designs,
Hmm.
and they are essentially just rebuilding the exact same levels from scratch using new assets. So the crate is exactly where you remember it being. The crate behaves exactly the way you remember, like with the
Hmm.
same bounciness. If you
Yep.
get Crash in between two crates, he'll rapidly bounce back and forth within them. They are aiming for controls that are not even controls, I guess, mechanics that are literally identical. Crash moves the way you expect him to, spins the way you expect him to,
Same sound
but
effects.
same sound effects, same music, but with a PS4 visual quality. And I mean, when you look at the screenshots,
Hmm.
you really do get that sense. I mean, Crash stands and looks like how you expect him to stand and look, but there's like motion blur around him, and
Hmm.
his fur is very, very detailed, almost like a Pixar sort of Ratchet and Clank level of detail.
Yeah.
And the foliage around him, Crash levels are such hallways,
Hmm.
but like the foliage around him it's really like just vivid, vibrant, like greens and reds and blues that actually sort of call to mind how those things looked on the PS1, like where it
Yeah.
was
And real
like a
lighting
Looney
effects and
Tunes.
everything.
Oh yeah, there's bloom lighting with the
Shadows.
suns and stuff. It really does look fantastic. Like
Yeah, it does.
in still motion, the levels, you're like, man, I cannot wait to play this. They are calling it a remaster plus, so it will have some modern features like auto saving, presumably after every level,
Mm.
which for the first game is a really big deal because you used to only be able to save.
The
You
checkpoints.
you
Well, you couldn't save, yeah.
Not even that. Yeah, you had to get to a bonus level
Yep.
with
Get
Tawna,
a code.
and exactly if you beat that bonus level, which actually wasn't easy toward the end of the game,
Yeah.
then it would give you a code, like a symbol code that you had to put in. But so there's that. They've also added relic time trials to all 3 games. The first game never had that,
Oh, okay.
and some other stuff they just haven't announced yet. But like really, their heart just totally seems in the right place. That's kind of why I thought this was a nice palate cleanser. The character art, there's a screenshot here on the PlayStation blog that shows like the whole lineup.
Hmm.
There's Entropy, there's Uka Uka, Aku Aku, like everyone. Like really, everyone kind of looks like how they expect them to. I mean, Crash is always going to be the most divisive because any change you make to him whatsoever is like what the whole thing is centered around. But I think
Yeah.
they did a good job. Like he looks good here.
It looks like a natural progression. Like it
Yeah, it
looks.
looks like if Naughty Dog had kept making the games, this is probably what they'd have ended up with.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he's trying to be trendy or spunky or like any like thing like
Tribal
what do
tattoos.
teens want? It's like no, it's like this is what a Crash would look like if Naughty Dog made a new Crash.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
he looks like the same type of guy. There's no crazy hair, there's no crazy clothes or anything like that. It's yeah, it's this looks extremely promising to me. Like
It does. And I'm pleased to say that I was able to play it at PSX.
ooh,
I did, yeah. So that preview is on PSU.com now, so people can go check that out. And I got to play. So the trailer that they showed at PSX focused kind of heavily on 2 levels. Insanity Beach, which is the first level of Crash 1,
yep,
and Heavy Machinery, which is a much later level in Crash 1,
mm-hmm.
toward the end of the game. And that. I mean, that instilled just even more confidence in me because Insanity Beach is exactly how I remember. I have played that level a staggering number of times in my
Yep.
life. Just the iconic like wakes up on the beach, lifts himself up, does his initial
Mm-hmm.
spin attack, and then we're off to the races. Like all those moments are there. I remembered the level geometry exactly. Toward the end of that level, there's a fork in the road, and if you take the right path, it's like the game's first legit challenge where it's a massive pit and a
Yep.
thin line of 10 boxes,
Yep.
and if you want that gem you've got to like
Bounce on every
very
single
carefully.
box. Yep.
Yeah, and if you screw up at all you fall. I failed. But that actually raises an interesting point. So there is something that they really do need to work on for this game in order for it to be excellent, and that is how do we deal with input lag in a modern high definition era. Because no doubt, like when I got to heavy machinery, I did pretty poorly, and I'm sure some of that was just because it's been so long. But I was paying careful attention to this once I realized something felt off. And there is, I mean, think about it like this: when we played these games on the PS1, they were on generally CRT monitors, CRT TVs, so there was literally no input lag. The game was designed such that the reflexes and minute movements you would have to do, you would be able to do them because there was no TV obstacle. But on these TVs at PSX, these HD TVs, granted, I don't know if they were set to game mode or not. There's like probably like a half second or a third second delay between my controller commands and then Crash moving.
Jeez.
And in a game like this where there's so much, like you can manipulate yourself in midair and the reflex in order to do that and save yourself from a death, like that timing is so tight.
Yep.
And you just your brain and your thinking needs to be so in sync with where Crash is on the screen that any delay there can really throw you off. And it was fine in Insanity Beach because that's a really easy level, but in Heavy Machinery I was really feeling just like oh, something does not feel right here, and I know it's not just my, how long it's been.
Yeah.
There was a clear input lag, and a little bit. Well, the D-pad is the other thing. So it's the weirdest thing. I fell back to using the D-pad because in Crash 1, that's all there was. That never had any analog support. So that's just how I'm used to playing it. And the PS1 D-pad and the PS4 D-pad are very different beasts. The PS4 D-pad is very, probably because I never use it, is very stiff, very large. It's kind of heavy compared to the D-pads of the previous gen. So even there, I felt some disconnect because it's muscle memory for me to expect the arrows, the D-pad arrows, to behave in a certain way, and on a PS4 controller, they definitely behave in a different way. So this is, I think, something that's more going to affect like veterans who've played these games to death. The input lag might affect newcomers because of how, like I said, how reflexive those games can be. But there's just like, I guess at the end of the day, it felt great to play them, but those two elements in particular, like they need to be addressed before the game actually comes out, or it's just not going to feel the way people expect it to.
Yeah, that isn't something I ever would have thought about as being a different issue, but yeah, like especially the boss fights and stuff, you can't have any hesitation whatsoever, or you're just screwed. Because
no, I know.
And I'm sure like a lot of people that even haven't played, or even people that have played these games, might think we're being a little extreme and talking about that timing. But it's no, go back and play them. Like honestly, they may be early games. People people a lot of times give Crash Bandicoot crap as being bad game mechanically or different things compared to like Mario or other stuff like that. But it's like no, they're really responsive.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There might be things that you don't agree with how it works in the game itself, but I mean, they're extremely smooth games, and they're very quick, and they're very challenging in certain areas, but
very, very tight. I mean, like literally just go back and play any of them, and in one playthrough, count how many times like that enemy would have killed you or that pipe would have burnt you by like one frame. Because a playthrough of the game, there will probably be 30 moments where you came within one frame of being killed by something. And in a lot of places, it's actually designed like that. Like you're supposed to be able to land, like jump in a way, and then on the way down from the jump, position yourself so that you land in an exact spot that is safe.
Yeah, it's extremely rhythmic in a lot of moments where it's just you can't stop what you're doing and you have to have the timing right. But if there is any type of hesitation, you're dead.
Or any responsiveness falling out of sync. So yeah, that's what I would. You're right. I think people probably. It does sound a little hyperbolic. It sounds like I may be making excuses, but just go back and play the old ones, and you'll see what I mean. So every time that happens to you, like you come within a frame of dying, just pretend you died, because that's how it's going to be unless they fix it or unless they address it somehow.
Well, I can't imagine that's not something they haven't noticed then at this point.
I'm sure they're feeling it because they're playing all day long. I can't wait to see what Warped looks like some of the Coco jet ski levels, riding the tiger on the Great Wall of China. It's gonna be really, really cool. I can't wait to just see. And that's what's cool as a veteran too, is that you go in and like every level is gonna be a new experience. Like around every corner, there's gonna be some new visual that is, this new interpretation of level 6 or level 7.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, even as someone who has played them all to death.
Well, and having trophy sport on a new game, I'd imagine.
Yes. Oh my God, trophies! I can't wait.
Yeah, actually make you feel like you should do the time trials, not just as a challenge, but actually getting a reward for them.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to those. It's been a long time actually since I've sat down and played them, so good reason to. Well, I guess we talked about a lot so far. I had a couple other things that I had pulled up, but we don't need to mention those yet.
Yeah, we got our 4 topics in,
There
right?
are 4 topics in, yeah. The other ones
Sure.
were all square anyway, so it's so we can save that for later. And I think they're all rumors at this point. It was like with the Final Fantasy VII remake, and then there was like a rumor for 30th
Yeah.
anniversary stuff, which is like
There's
that's
probably
a whole
nuggets.
lot of yeah.
Yeah. That's a
I'm
whole show.
I'm sure we'll find out more about all that stuff down the road soon, but yeah, I know that once Kyle finishes Final Fantasy 15, and I just finished it, like I said before, we're going to be doing a full spoiler cast of talking about everything in the game and what we think about. So please stay tuned for that if you're interested in it. I think we're shooting for next week if Kyle can barrel through the story this weekend. So but
I'm sure I'll make headway.
you'll make a lot of progress, I'm sure.
I can't wait, man.
Yeah,
It's so good. It's so nice to be back and just sit among the Christmas lights and get down to gaming. It's I love this time of
right?
year.
Yeah. No, it was a very, very relaxing time. So, but yeah, and I got to go back. I got to get into The Last Guardian so we can do one of those for that game too.
Oh, hell yeah,
I know that
yeah.
you're itching to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since it came out and it probably as expected, it was somewhat divisive, but
Hmm.
there are people like me who think it might be Team Ico's best work, and there are others who think it's a relic of the PS2 era. So where will you fall is the question.
Yeah. Oh, maybe I'll run out and get that today. We'll see.
I feel like if you run out and get that today, you will probably just play it until Sunday at 5 a.m. Like
I
just
would probably beat it this weekend.
no, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Like you'll just go hard on it, and then you'll be halfway through, and you're like, all right, it's 10 p.m. I'm halfway through the game, but this is happening.
pretty much. So anyway, yeah, thanks for listening to what we're at episode 47 of PlayStation Fix. Be sure to you can find PlayStation Fix on a multitude of places. You can find it on our YouTube channel at PS YouTube. You can find it on SoundCloud, searching for PlayStation Fix. You can find us on iTunes too. And please leave reviews or comments on any of those places so we know how to make this show better for you all, or if you have any topics that you want us to talk about, be interested to hear. Always go to PlayStation Universe for all of your PlayStation news. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Our main man, social media guru, senior editor Ernest Lynn, keeps that stuff up to date on a regular basis. Thanks again for listening to episode 47 of PlayStation Fix, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Take care.